Officer Davis, an experienced cop, was known for his strict adherence to the law. One sunny afternoon, his attention was caught by a speeding car zipping down the highway. Davis immediately started his pursuit, his siren blaring loudly. As the speeding vehicle finally pulled over, he approached it with caution. But who was the person behind the wheel? Before we start, smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. The man he was writing up now got even angrier at Davis that he was getting a ticket, and the officer was letting the man driver go who had just sped past them. Davis told him to shut up and quickly gave him his ticket. He wanted to check his high-speed camera quickly. The car had disappeared from sight just a couple seconds after it passed him, and he had not been able to catch the number plate. He did not even see what model or make the car was, only that it was looking expensive and painted completely white. He had set it up to take a picture of every car passing anywhere over the speeding limit. He feared that the car might have gone too fast for the camera to get a good and clever shot of it, but luckily this was not the case. The camera had managed to capture the last 4 digits of the number plate, which should be enough to find it. Davis waited out the rush hour and gave out a couple more tickets for minor offenses, but his mind was still on the white car. He was determined to find it and made sure that person would get what was coming to him. When Davis got back to the station, he immediately sat his ass down in front of the computer and started his search for more information. All vehicles that were currently in America should be registered in the database, and so it should only be a matter of time before he found it. He typed in the characters of the number plate he knew and was presented with about 100 results. He was checking them one by one to see if any of them were linked to white cars, and 7 of them were. But only one actually looked like the car Davis had seen that day. It was a brand new white Honda Civic Sport, and Davis thought he had bingo here, that it would only be a matter of time now before he could confront this reckless driver. But then he stumbled onto a problem, something that was going to make finding the man a lot more difficult. The database started that both the car and the number plate were unregistered. This meant that the system knew that the car existed, but that it could not give Davis information about who owned it or where it came from. Seeing this felt like a punch in the gut for Officer Davis, but he was not ready to give up yet. This model was still so incredibly new, only being released about a year ago, that the owner most likely had to buy it new. Or maybe it only had one previous owner, and when looking up the model in general, he could that there were only about 250 brand new editions sold or for sale in total in the state and states around them. Davis decided to make a list of all the dealerships which had sold one of these cars and hoped that one of them had the number plate in their database. Then they could tell him who they had sold the car to, and he would finally have his speeding driver identified. It was already too late to call anybody today, but Davis decided he would work extra tomorrow in order to have the time to call every single dealership if necessary. He had not been this motivated for any aspect of his work in a long time. This was giving him so much more energy than writing up people who had done nothing wrong. On Saturday, he spent about 2 hours calling all kinds of different dealerships until he finally got what he was looking for. When he quoted the number plate to the dealership, the line suddenly went quiet, and Davis got the response he was hoping for. The dealership was located in the next state over, about a 6-hour drive away from the small town. Davis already had his pen and paper in hand to write down the information of through buyer, but the dealership had some unexpected and disappointing news for the officer. They did not have any information about the buyer, as the car had not been bought at all. It had been stolen only yesterday. Somebody had carjacked the vehicle Friday morning and had not been seen ever since. The dealership had already made a report of it to the police, but they had clearly not acted on it yet. Suddenly it made sense why the vehicle had been spending so much. The highway Davis was patrolling had been located near the edge of the state. The thief had probably wanted to get to the next state over as quickly as possible, as it would then be much more difficult to arrest him. But this also gave Davis the realization that he would probably never see this car again. If the driver was not from around here, what reason would he have to use this highway again? Davis did make a report to the police who were dealing with the stolen car case about the fact that he had seen the vehicle, and he thought that that was it. It only took about a week again. A week of boring highway patrol work for Davis. He had made so many locals angry again and was seriously doubting how long he would be able to keep up this job. But then, during the Friday afternoon rush hours, Davis got a sense of deja vu. But this time, Davis was not writing up another driver. He was in his police car waiting to find somebody to give a ticket. And then he heard it coming in the distance. A very familiar roar. Something was absolutely flooring it down the highway, and Davis knew that there was only one car that this could be. The nearest town was about 10 minutes away, and so he still had time to act after the chopper had arrived, and he already had a plan. He needed to stay on the tail of that white Honda until the right time arrived. And when he heard on the radio that the chopper had eyes on the vehicle, Davis knew that it was now or never. He took a very deep breath and went for it. He gave his car even more gas than before and approached the Honda until he almost hit the bumper. But just before he did, he veered to the left so that the nose of his car came beside the vehicle's rear, and then Davis quickly pulled his car right again. He hit the white Honda's backside hard, which caused both cars to immediately spin out, and at the speed they were going, there was no stopper on either of the vehicles. It was now just hoping and praying that Davis's car would not end up wrapped around a tree. He closed his eyes and braced himself for the impact. Only seconds later, he was hit in the face with the airbag as the car span off the road and came to an eventual stop. Davis was briefly knocked out by the impact, but luckily he quickly woke up again. After realizing what had happened, he realized that he did not feel like he had any serious injuries, and so he quickly got out of the car to see what had happened to the white Honda. And it did not take long for him to see the smoking car. Davis walked up to the car window as quickly as his injured body allowed him. He had his weapon drawn and was screaming at the driver to come out with his hands up. At first, nothing was happening, but as Davis was edging closer and closer, he saw that the hands were on the dashboard of the car. Davis now came almost to the window. He feared that the driver may be seriously injured or worse, but when he saw what was really going on with the driver, his jaw nearly dropped to the floor. This was the last person he expected to see, and that was because there was not a person behind the wheel at all. It was a dummy. Of course, he was not able to put his hand up or put the keys on top of the car. What the hell was happening here? How did the doll manage to drive this car so skillfully? Davis was completely stunned by what he had just discovered. How was this even possible? How was controlling this car? Or was it done by AI or something? That seemed almost impossible with the maneuvers it was making to lose him on the highway. Davis knew one thing for sure, and that was that he needed to get the technical support here ASAP. This car also needed to be moved out of the road as soon as possible as it was. A tow truck quickly arrived from the nearby city to put the car on the side of the road, and the technical service came by shortly after. And to Davis's surprise, they had actually seen this before a couple of times, just not anywhere close to here or used in this way. There were a lot of people experimenting with this technology. Being able to make older cars self-driving was a very hot topic for developers, and multiple of these kinds of machines were being developed by independent innovators. And indeed, the dealership could produce a name for Davis within minutes. It was somebody that was not familiar with the police, but they did manage to find an address very quickly, and officers were at his door not even an hour later to arrest him. The man looked completely shell-shocked and tried to deny all the, in his words, bizarre allegations. But when the police searched his house, they quickly found a controller and another couple of the machines Davis found in the car. Those turned out to be prototypes. Now there was no way around the truth anymore for the innovator, and so he decided to just come completely clean. The theory that the police had come up with was completely right, but what neither he nor the police had anticipated was the reason the car came back to the same spot. It was just because the man had way too much fun speeding with the car. He figured that nobody would be able to catch him anyway, and when he was set to be caught, he would just drive the car into the water somewhere, destroying his machine and the evidence on that spot. That was his actual target when he went off the highway. He never had any intention of going to the town, but when Davis hit the back of his car, he lost all power and could do nothing but wait until the police found out the truth. He could have tried to flee, but he figured that he would be caught eventually, so he just decided to stay put. The man was swiftly arrested and is now awaiting trial for putting a lot of people's life at risk on the road, and Officer Davis can count on a lot more respect in his own city now.